Yo, what's up, good people? Welcome to the Quantel Lindsey podcast. I'm your host, Quantel Lindsey. This episode is brought to you by Blueprint for Life. There is no blueprint for life, but together we can create one. Listen, y'all, I got a king in the house today. I got a guy I've been excited to talk to and just glean from. Y'all help me give a digital hand clap to the one and only Toure. Did I say that right, King?
Yeah, Toure. Yeah, you got it. That's close
Ma-
enough.
All right, good. Toure. How'd you get the name Maj? Can you break that down for us?
Maj is aligns justice. Maj is when you come into knowledge of self. Some people know that phrasing from 5% ideology. Some
Yeah.
people even in different value systems when they become a young man from a child or a boy, they determine their own identity for themselves. Um,
Mm.
and then for me to not diss my parents. I chose something that was in alignment with, the positive affirmations and lifestyle that they, initially gave me as my given name. So for me, my aligns justice. I remember learning, for people that don't know, Ma'at is an ancient Egyptian goddess of balance, truth, and reciprocity. And so she, people that follow the 42 laws of Ma'at, there's 42 laws that you keep to make sure that your spirit is intact. So when you make that transition, your heart will be weighed on the scale against like a feather of Ma'at. And if your
Mm.
heart is pure because you've lived these things, you'll make that transition into the next realm much more smoothly. So, I just, in coming into more knowledge of self, being exposed to different information, different books and stuff like that, I wanted to pick something that was not only reflective of something that my parents wouldn't be tripping about,
Yeah.
but also at the same time that I could live up to and other people could live up to as well. So my aunt consistently maintaining that thought process of there's things that you have to do to be respectful to folks, and then is it in alignment with justice? Is it in alignment with being righteous? Is it in alignment with all these decisions that you make in every single day? Are these things in alignment with your name? Because
Mm.
this is the thing that you're known for. This is the thing that you are identified as. And so we hear that word a lot. Oh, they're known for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But hey, how serious are people about making sure that they're actually living this thing that they want to be known for? Or is this thing that you're doing something that you should be known for in the first place? Like, do you want to be known for that? And
Mm.
so that's the overall thought process of my name. People always, it's interesting. It's like when shorties get upset, they'll call you by your government, and people always act like I've hidden this component of the story. Like, oh,
Yeah.
he's into this. That's why his name is. And it's like, bro, So, but it's always interesting to watch. But your name and you choosing to have a name that is a more reflection of who you strive to be, and something that's honorable is always looked at as a good thing. Your name should be good, and everybody understands that. It's no different than your FICO score. Like,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
name outside. Can people trust you? Are your actions in alignment with trustworthy nature? So that's the overall story of it.
Okay, dope, man. And I don't know, man. I'm a man of faith, so the Bible said a good name is rather to be chosen. Names matter, and I understand what you can when you kicking flavor and dropping that knowledge of self. So I'm definitely interested, man. I want to dive right in and be respectful of your time. You are the co-founder of Black Guns Matter. And that's a play or alternative to Black Lives Matter. Can you speak on how you and the because you're the co-founder, how did you guys come up with Black Guns Matter?
It was really an more of a thought process of, we don't disagree with the phrase that Black lives matter.
Okay.
Now, that as a phrase, as a word, as something that people identify as, no, I don't think, I think anybody with half a brain would not be upset by that.
Yeah,
I think
true.
that a
True.
lot of times what happens though is people get into this contrarian argument, or they'll go, well, Spanish lives matter too. And it's like one does not mean to the exclusion of the other. So a lot of people during that time when that organization first popped up on the scene, whether that organization is living up to what that name means or not, or some of the people in that organization, that doesn't change the fact that those lives do matter. And at that time, along with a media push, it looked almost like, damn, can we get through a year or two? Excuse me, can we get through a week or two without it seeming like there's some black man unarmed being murdered by police?
Mm.
Right. And so, like, even for last year, most people don't recognize that 2023 had record breaking numbers of homicides of Americans by law enforcement officers
Wow.
last year.
Wow.
And so, but it's not spoken about anymore because it doesn't have that same media push right now. And I'm not saying that murder of citizens by law enforcement officers in America is the biggest issue in the world or the biggest issue even in America. I'm not saying that. But I
Okay.
am saying that when people start to bring this up and media goes, hey, this is happening. Here's an opportunity to educate. So instead of arguing against the concept of Black Lives Matter, because some people would say, oh, it's an organization that isn't really going to do what it said it's going to do. I asked, God bless the dead. I asked his lady, after his death, I asked him, I said, yo, or his lady, I asked her what was up with BLM before Darren Seals was killed. I was in Ferguson. I met Mike Brown's dad. I asked specific questions. I went to where Darren Seals was shot and his car was set on fire. And Darren Seals, this video of him saying, oh, because that all came out of the Ferguson movement. People have short attention spans, but BLM came out of the Ferguson movement after Mike Brown's death.
Correct.
Darren Seals said, that's not us. The people that made that corporation, they came and rode off of the Ferguson movement. But Google at that time had gave them like $500,000.
Mm.
And he said, that's not us. They co-opted that. And I was very, very clear that early on, because I went to St. Louis. I was at the market, the Ferguson market, where Mike Brown was killed, or, where it started. So I already knew that this organization was not what was being presented. What may not be this, even though there still were a lot of people that were supportive of that movement. I knew that some of the people in positions of leadership, corporate leadership, may not have the same intention as the originators in the Ferguson movement.
Come on.
But instead of me fighting against that and arguing, because people join movements, and they might not even know what leadership is on, but the branding and what they're talking about seems to resonate. So I didn't want to oppose it in that sense, because time will tell. What I started to do was go, okay, if you think that Black Lives Matter, then you shouldn't be offended by Black Guns Matter. If you think that Black Lives Matter, Black people having the means to defend themselves, you should not be offended by that in any way, shape, or form. There should be no, I just seen too many people almost sarcastically, and a lot of bigots pushed back against that concept. But they didn't make an organization called White Lives Matter, like when Daniel Schaefer was murdered by law enforcement officers, when Tony Temple was murdered by law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
People become contrarian and say, well, what about these guys? Well, you didn't start an organization that highlighted these Americans being killed. So for me, it just became, let's talk about that. And if that organization doesn't do what they're supposed to do, that's on those people that don't do that thing in that leadership, but that overall movement and that concept of saying, hey, we should not be shot in the street. And no American should be shot in the street by law enforcement officers. But media seems to be highlighting on this one right now. I'm going to take advantage of that and turn that into more and more people that happen to be Black Americans, taking a moment to identify the importance of conflict resolution, the importance of firearm safety and training, the importance of, de-escalation. These are the things. I think a lot of times what happens is we want to be against things, and it's cool to be against things, but it's much more difficult to build things. And so that kind of understanding, along with my lived experience, along with going and speaking to these people, I did classes in Ferguson, when George Floyd was murdered, we went to where George Floyd was killed at within a few days and did classes literally at the store where he was killed.
Wow.
And so I'm not here to argue about somebody's perfection or an organization's tax filings. I don't care. It's no different than when I'm looking at, you know, President Trump being attacked by media. Me highlighting that the media lies a lot is not a cosign to me of everything you should. I'm a libertarian. That does not mean that I'm saying you should definitely vote for Trump. It means you should be critical of any politician, and more so than anything, the reason why so much focus has been put on presidential elections is because so many people are not involved in local and state races in
Teach,
politics.
sir.
You know,
Teach.
you know. So it just was us going, hey, there's some contradictory situations here. We can apply solutions to it. That contradictory situation as it relates to Black people and firearms is the history of uh, gun control in America is 1000% racist. So we can't say systemic racism, and not talk about the biggest systemically racist thing in American history, which is gun control. And then at
Now,
the same time,
educate us on that, Maj. Sorry to cut you off, sir. You have a shirt says all gun control is racist.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and dialogue and break that down. Elaborate on that.
you can't, like, to tell someone fundamentally and historically, you know, we don't want you to have the means to defend your life. I mean, that's the foundation of gun control. Some of my Jewish friends that happen to be liberal, they promote and say gun control should be a thing. And I say liberal in the sense of a lot of people are liberal because on certain social issues, right? But some of my Jewish friends that are liberal and they don't like gun control, or they want more gun control, they're not familiar with this.
Come on. Y'all see it.
So this is what happened when, you know, Goebbels and the organization that led into Hitler being democratically elected, when they de-armed the Jewish population over there. That happened. And I don't care where people land on Jewish people, white people, Black people. It doesn't really matter to me. My argument is there is always going to be a form of de-arming the people before massive levels of casualties and murder. And so when you go back to Black folks, that's just something to throw out there, because some people will say, oh, Maj, you just saying that because you happen to be Black. No, there is actual history associated with this lesson that I'm talking about.
Wow.
Negroes and the gun. This book takes people back all the way back to 1806, Virginia, Plymouth, where it was before even like there were certain Black codes and slave codes, so-called slave codes, that were like, hey, listen, if they are indigenous, or at the time they said Negro because they grouped indigenous people, or what we would call, some people would call Indian people.
Yeah.
Indigenous people and Black folk both were identified as Negro. And if you saw a Black person that fit the indigenous or African American title, they were not within their rights. They didn't respect their rights to have a firearm. And it was, I'm talking about states like Tennessee, states like Virginia. They just had rules that was like, any able-bodied white man can have a firearm or be armed, but not these people.
That's a fact.
And, you know, so when we say that, and then you fast forward, everything becomes a teachable moment to me. It becomes a moment to go, okay, whether what you're saying is right or not, here's some information that you may or may not have known about this thing that you're either super passionate against, or super passionate for. So if you're super like, I like guns, cool. Did you notice about the anti-gun movement? Damn, I didn't know that. Yeah. If you are super more identify with the left and systemic racism, did you know that this is systemically racist? Because if you more identify on the left, you're probably asking for more gun control. So on one hand, you're saying there's a systemic racist problem in America, and then you're advocating for and following politicians that push for the most systemically racist thing in American history. Telling someone that they don't have a right and the means to defend their life from criminals, from the government, while you're saying that the government is systemically racist, it's got to be a contradiction. And I'm not going to say that a person just generally hates Black people. I'm going to say that you just don't know this. So I'm going to take this as a moment of information to inform you, to get your mind in a solid formation so you can actually move differently out here. We cannot say, you can, but it's a contradiction. And to those of us that see the contradiction, you look like a fool. And I'm assuming that these people don't want to look like fools, so I'll inform them. If they say, I am for gun control, oh, I didn't know that you wanted to defend systemic racism in America. So instead of, same thing with the BLM, BGM conversation, I'm not here to fight against a thing. I am here to present the information and slide that information in whatever lane and opportunity that presents itself so we can inform more humans. We can have more humans dealing in the inevitable outcome of training as it relates to firearms, which is a more well-rounded, physically fit, politically astute, financially responsible person. That is what happens when you oppose systemically racist situations. You recognize the system and you go, I have to make sure that I have forms of independence from and defense from this system. So now you start thinking about, okay, historically, health. Now you start reading books like, I don't know, there's a great book. Dang, what's the title of it? It's called Medical Apartheid. You start reading books like that and you go, whoa, the healthcare system has had some systemic racist situations. Let me make sure that I'm eating better fruits and vegetables. Let me make sure that I'm eating a more quality cut of meat, because I don't want to be dependent on the system that's steeped in some of these things. Now, this does not mean that everyone in the medical profession right now is like, let's get the blacks. I'm not saying that, but you start to be more informed and you start to go, I have to make sure that my resources, my property, and my highest property, my body, has more independence from a system. And ironically, that makes you more in alignment with the concept of America. It's about independence. We just had Independence Day a few days ago.
Okay.
And you start to go, my elders, if you happen to be, melanated, happen to be black, you go, my elders had to be independent and have less dependence on the system because the system did not want them in certain spaces. So then you start thinking about politics. Then you start thinking about civics. Then you start thinking about, again, personal protection. Then you start thinking about, did they just isolate racism and this type of systemic thing to one group, or now have they expanded on it? And then they're trying to get more and more people. And you start to understand the Gun Control Act of 1968. Yeah, that fast forward to however many years. But then you go back to the National Firearms Act. They use the Italian people to justify that. Then you start to look at, man, the first federal gun grab was the massacre at Wounded Knee of indigenous people. Then you go, whoa, maybe I should not be dependent on the system or this government.
Teach, sir.
Inevitably just become more well-rounded. That is the overall what happens to a person that starts to think about personal protection and the situations that they put their body in. You start to think about, okay, if they would be this systemically racist at that time, what stops that power from wanting to keep people weak and incapable? Then you start looking into the Food and Drug Administration. You start to go, man, maybe I should get some land down in insert whatever state, and maybe I should grow some food. Then you start, I'm telling you, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. You start a person, God bless the dead to the great Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. The 9 areas of human activity: education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war, all so forth and so on, right? You start to become questioning every single thing, and you become a more benefit to society because you make sure that you're not a burden to society. Any one of those lanes that you come into this game on, if it's education first, oh my goodness, you're going to speed through the other areas of human activity. If you come in through labor, you're having labor disputes. When you talk about Jimmy Hoffa, they never found his body. You're definitely going to start talking about personal protection. If you come in through entertainment and you start to see, man, why is it that every other group of and I love The Office, the TV show The Office, right?
Yeah.
Damn, how come none of the black people on The Office never had a successful relationship? Why is that? What are the psychology and the psychological things that's happening with writing? And you go backwards and you see the entertainment was another, it was forms of what black folks didn't like. You got to black face up or you got to do a certain thing. Then you start connecting the dots. I'll be daggone if all of our superstars are not doing the bug-eyed, step and fetch it type of thing.
Wow. Television, huh?
Telling lies all to your vision. The point there is, it doesn't matter which lane you come in this game of understanding human
Yeah.
activity on, and it doesn't have to be race based. You
Yeah.
could be a white person and just going, why are all of the fathers now like clowns and idiots on all television shows? Like the dad can't just be a funny dad and the charismatic dad, but still a stern, firm dad. You right?
Masculine dad. A man's man.
Masculine dad. Then
Yeah.
you start to go, wait a minute, and you start connecting those dots. So I just know that I'm just going to inform people on whatever level. We doing the solutionary 9 now, where it's 9 things that you do every single day. Then when that person starts to see the benefit from it, they go, I
Bingo.
won the day today.
Yep.
And then they go, man, this ain't as difficult. I could win every day.
Yeah.
My point in saying that is that's what we have to put the mindset of on the people. And no matter what lane I'm introduced or I'm introducing someone into it, going to the gym. When you see somebody and you take them to the gym, and they, especially with young guys that like to fight a lot, you
Yeah.
take them to the gym and it's like, all right, bro, I want you to jump rope. We're gonna do 6 rounds of jump rope. They 3-minute rounds. Matter of fact, we want to make it 2-minute rounds. I want you to jump on this rope for 2 minutes, which is 120 seconds, but you got to do that 6 times. And they see how winded they are. Not only do they go, if I was in a fight, I might have been gassed. They also start to go, I got to get better at this. And ironically, instead of them having temper tantrums and wanting to fight all the time, a lot of times that shifts. So again, the overall point is I don't care where I get you in the process of the areas of human activity. They're all going to lead to, if you stay on this path, they're all going to lead to, I need to be healthy. I
Yeah.
need to be spiritually aware. I need to have a system that aligns me with a higher purpose. And I need to be alive and well and being able to protect myself and loved ones to
Yeah.
get stronger, to be able to serve them for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So really, all of that is just, the lane. Black Guns Matter was just the lane that I could have that conversation to get people in. And we're doing the same thing with health and fitness, economics, and things like that.
So you guys, y'all started off 13 cities, if I'm correct, 13 colonies, going into basically Democratic ran cities with massive gun control,
Yep.
with high crime, murder rates. I think you went and lived in Chicago for a month, if my research proves well.
Yep.
And you guys are teaching firearm safety. And
Right.
and I think that's one thing, because Maj, I'm gonna ask you a question. How do we kill the stigma of guys like myself and other Americans carrying firearms, the war on firearms? And I'll ask that question. And who's the enemy? That's the one thing I want to, like, who is our enemy? Because I think we believe sometimes our enemy is our neighbor. Our enemy is someone that doesn't have as much melanin as we may have. So who is the enemy, that Maj, in your opinion?
The enemy is always ignorance.
Okay.
Ignorance, false ego, negativity. There's a great book that everybody should read. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. You should read the audiobook or listen to the audiobook.
Yeah.
In that audiobook, it's a conversation between Napoleon Hill and who wrote Think and Grow Rich and all of that.
Yeah.
Conversation between the devil and Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill is basically saying how he controls 98% of the population, because most people drift. Most people don't stop and think, right?
Yeah.
And the cause of that is ignorance and fear. You fear because you're ignorant. People fear the unknown because they don't know. That's a form of ignorance.
That's a
So the enemy is always the ignorance. How it manifests and bubble up after that is a whole different thing. You see guys that are insecure, but might be really tough guys, and but still fighting some demons, right? And those guys, if you hear it in our demographic, what you looking at? Oh, you think I see you? You think I see your weaknesses? You think I see your insecurities? You think I see the things that are impacting you negatively?
Yes.
You think that, and you don't want to be seen because it's an insecurity that you're trying to hide.
Yes.
So it's not that dude just wanted to fight people that day. It's, I have an insecurity because I have not been skilled at a particular thing to develop the competence. Now I have the confidence that it doesn't matter if people see me, because
Come on.
see me.
Come on.
See me,
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so That's always the enemy. When it bubbles up into the physical realm, um, it could be any lack of melanated, non-melanated system or person. It could be any of that. When
Okay.
you talk about things that have to have in the physical realm, there has to be a physical, it's a set of laws. The laws that happen on the quantum mechanical or quantum physics world, quantum physics world, those laws don't seem to hold up the same way. But once it bubbles up into the physical realm, there are solid laws that are immutable. In the quantum physics world, quark scale, quarks, biopsies, Planck scale, super, super, super low. You need a huge microscope to
Yeah.
see on that level. Two things can be in one place at the same time, not two separate things, but one thing in two different places at the same time. Time and space don't exist the same way, right? And some people say that's the essence of God, the essence of all, we're made up of all of this stuff. My point is, then it gets into the physical realm. So now, one thing cannot be in two places at the same time because it's a physical law, set of physical laws. So when people look for the enemy on the surface, the conditioning has told them that, or media has said it's all white people, if you're talking about black in America.
Yeah.
Then some people's physical conditioning on certain levels go, it's not white people, it's the black people in my neighborhood that just tried to rob me or insert whatever. These are all manifestations of the ignorance or the negative that manifests and lives in 50% of all of the atoms, molecules, and whatever that make up your body. And if you have a Christian background, you'll call that 50% the devil, right? If you have a scientific background, you'll call that the negative portion of the atom.
Okay.
Right?
I'm tracking you.
The negative and the positive coexist, but they only do what you tell them to do. They are there to give you a certain level of direction or whisper to you. You make the ultimate decision based on what voice you listen to. So if you listen to the ignorance or the negative portion of the atom, you listen to the devil that day or on that moment. If you listen to the higher voice, and the trick is the voice sounds the same.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That voice is going to sound like you should do this right. And I'll break it down into three things. That voice is either inspiration, which is flashes. You wake up, you got a great idea. Go write it down. Go start executing. You are not going to remember that idea. It comes like a flash. Creation, invention, book idea, t-shirt idea, doesn't matter. You got to have inspiration that's fast and it's a flash. You're going to have intimidation, which is that lower frequency, that other half of the atom that's going to try to tell you in a way that the thing that you're doing that you are supposed to be doing, that you know you're supposed to do, it'll come up with any way to tell you why you shouldn't do it. It's going to try to get you off your plan or off your path. That's the intimidation. But the intimidation doesn't sound like a bully. It's too easy to recognize it and stop it if it sounds like a bully. It sounds like it's something that's good for you, and it's not. Because it's taking you off of the thing that you was on, because I need to be not eating sugary foods because I'm trying to get more healthy, right? And then you have intuition. Don't stand right there. It's not getting you off of a path of action. It's getting you off of, don't stand right there because a ceiling fan is about to fall.
Yeah.
That intuition, when we ignore that, we usually say, something told me to, yeah, you didn't listen to the intuition, right? My point in saying this all is all of that in a discernment between which voice is which, when it's the ignorance and you can identify it, all of the things that bubble up in the physical realm, regardless of how it looks on the surface, white person, black person, Asian person, whatever, all of that is the same combination of being that is being led with the fear and the ignorance. And that's what bubbles somebody up to say, I'm going to make a rule that this group of people does not have the means to defend their life from actual bad people. There would be no reason for you to say, let's make legislation that says this group of people should not have the means. During that time, it was like bears running around. You're telling me that this group of people should not have the means to defend themselves from bears, which is a real thing.
Yeah.
Now you're saying you should not have the means to defend yourself from criminals in a bad neighborhood. And so that type of ignorance and fear is there to keep chaos, confusion, and,
Control.
controlling madness.
So Maj, with that, I'm a shift right now. You're on the Quantel Lindsey podcast. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Maj Toure, founder Black Guns Matter and the Solutionary Center. Maj, did you watch the debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Yes, I did. Every single moment of it.
Yeah, tell me, did that change your vote? I know you're libertarian, so that was tongue in cheek. Did that change your position? And let's start with Joe Biden. What do you grade this 4 years under Joe Biden?
I said this 4 years ago. The tweet exists somewhere. It's probably on my old account. I said Joe Biden will be the worst president in the United States history. Now, that's a far-fetched thing because you got guys that created the Federal Reserve Bank that sold America out to corporations, a few decades ago. He's on par to 100% make that a reality. And it's not because simply of Joe Biden. It's the Democratic machine, the DNC. Everybody could see that there was something wrong with this gentleman. Everybody.
Yeah, it was rough.
They lied. They hired people. Some of the people that I lost a lot of respect for that still continue to say they're voting for him and then saying they're for the betterment of Black people. They isolate themselves to Black people. I recognize that. And they have a lot of anti-white shit to say. And I'm not saying that as if there isn't things systemically that have impacted Black communities negatively that happen to be white legislation. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that you're pro-Black and then say, yeah, and I'm still voting for Joe Biden this go around. You're out of your mind. And so I've lost a lot of respect for some very famous people that I know that I'm like, bro, you looking real oppy right now. You still telling Black people to vote for that. And I've yet to hear you tell them to get involved in politics locally.
On the local level. Yeah.
So did it change my vote? Absolutely not. Joe Biden is a horrible human being. Because God's not done with me yet, right? But however, I am happy that he's having so clear dementia in his life and his cognitive abilities are being destroyed right in front of us. I am happy for that.
Wow.
Karmically, this lets, and I'll say why. This lets me know.
I want you to clear that up for the listeners, the viewers who are going to watch that playback because it's a sensitive culture right now, Maj. You got to be nice.
This is me being nice.
Oh Lord.
Joe Biden. Some of you that are going to vote for him, and a vote is a choice. You vote with your dollars, you vote with your feet being in places, not being in places. Joe Biden has crafted legislation for now 50 years. He's been in office for 50 years in some form or fashion, specifically to target Black communities. And the impact of his choices, even if in the heart of his hearts, he wasn't going, I am going to impact the Black folks. Okay. In Judaism or Toure, right? Your intention doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean more than what did your actions create? Your actual, I get it. I had good intentions. Cool. That's another thing that in the Outwitting the Devil, in the book, the devil talks about that. He's like, well, I use people's intentions as the devil all the time. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
Right?
6 a.m. Yep.
So in that value system of Toure or that book, your intentions don't mean as much as what did your actions, deeds, and words create. His legislation has created the destruction of a big portion of the destruction of Black families for decades, for mostly nonviolent drug possession. And I wouldn't be so, because I don't do drugs generally. I mean, outside of the stuff that they put in our chemicals in our food, generally. However, but I smoke cigars, right? So The question becomes, okay, what was the intent? Cool. But what happened? What happened was, for nonviolent possession of a thing that people choose to put in their highest property, which is their body, you decided to say, I'm going to give them three strikes laws. I'm going to send them with mandatory sentencing, so forth and so on. And then you turn around when he was running in 2020, he turned around and was still like, yeah, I stand behind that. And now your son is getting a sweetheart deal on the same crack cocaine that you made mandatory sentences for. So karmically, seeing Joe Biden's mental faculties decline gives me a renewed hope that God is good, because karma is the system that God enacts on us all based on your own choices and what you did. What karma means to do, meaning, because what you do, there's an equal and opposite reaction to it. As you reap, you reap as you sow. My point is, this makes me happy because this lets me know that my hard work is not in vain, because what I do is good for the people. And that is going to be good for me because I'm watching somebody over time. I'm young, but I'm old enough to recognize, oh, this dude is just sowing. It's his harvest season. And the families that you destroyed, intentionally or not, the families that you destroyed, nobody forces somebody to take a drug. Nobody forces you to take alcohol. Nobody forces you to eat white sugar, which is 6 times more addictive than cocaine. And they put it in it's in your sugar, it's in your ketchup, it's in your bread. Your body doesn't know the difference. They do, though. So when I see that, it gives me renewed hope. It makes it, when I see so many black people going, no. And I'm not talking about the people that are paid by the Democrat. Any celebrity that's advocating for Joe Biden on the national level right now until November is the ops, or they are paid by the ops. That's it. So I'm not saying those people, but when I see the rank and file members of Black America going like, no, I thought that y'all, this was going to be right. We was getting money in 2017, 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Then you just overextended yourself. You've consistently been disrespectful to Black communities. You got on this thing and said, if you don't know how to vote for me, you ain't Black. You've said, oh, Obama was one of the clean ones. You said you didn't want your children raised in a racial jungle. This is not me. This is your words becoming flesh, manifesting, and your legislation was in alignment with it. And now look at you. I already know how I'm going to go. 90-something years old, in the bed with my grandbabies all around. That's fly.
Come on.
My hand is going to call for that based on the outcomes of the actions that I choose in my mind in the metaphysical and quantum physics world. And then it bubbles up into things that are of acts of service. So I get to create the life that I want. I get to I'm going to be buried over there. That's our land. We're going to have a little cemetery for our family members and so forth and so. That's not going to be the case with Joe. Joe let hate, negative actions, and the utilization of a supposedly public servant position, he leveraged that for his own financial, political, and social interest. He did pay for play. His son, who has no serious reason for being in Ukraine, did pay for play. And now we are watching in real time what happens karmically. So I am happy that it's happening to him, because it is a real-time example of going, this karma thing is real. And he's going to get his comeuppance. He looks like an he has no legacy. Your legacy will be an elderly man walking around, losing his mind, being the laughing stock to the rest of the international community. And the DNC does not care because they trotted him out there so they could launder billions, at this point, $200 billion, and wash that money through Ukraine.
Wow, man. Listen, guys, man, bombs being dropped on the Quantel Lindsey podcast. Man, tell us, I'm scared to ask. So tell me how you feel about the Republican nominee. And how did you feel his term went? And do you think he's going to win? And how do you feel about Donald Trump?
I think they all It's too many people. It's obvious that they cheated the go around. It's
Mm,
obvious.
okay.
And when you look at, you know, the massive events that Trump is holding around the country,
Yeah.
places where they like these are leftist cities. He was here in Philly at the Leah Corus Center not long ago.
Did you pull up?
No, I was somewhere else. I think I
Right.
was somewhere.
Oh,
I might have been in DC or I can't remember. Um, the general public sees that the game was rigged. I think the game is still rigged.
mm,
I think if it's a fair election, which there hasn't been in America for some time, I think he obviously wins. I think the pulse of the people, and I think the money people want him to win. Uh, Vladimir Putin a few days ago said he would be open to ending the war in Ukraine under the leadership of President Trump.
wow.
No one respects Biden, and they shouldn't. He's not worthy of respect. He's not a good leader. I think that Donald Trump, on certain levels, like as the job is the commander in chief. The president's job is to defend the Constitution and command the armed forces. That is the
Mm,
job of the executive branch. I think the armed forces are more inspired by a Donald Trump being the commander in chief, and I think that the Constitution he needs some work on. I did not like his position on the Fourth Amendment, take the guns first, due process later. I did
yeah.
not like that we had to get the bump stock ban all the way up to the Supreme Court to get overturned. The Constitution and the Second Amendment is already clear. So in those areas, he needs work. But when you're talking about the job of defending the Constitution and commanding the armed forces, that is the job of a president. Not to tell you what guns you can have, not to tell you what masks you have to wear. The shutdown of the government was Donald Trump.
Mm,
And in hindsight, we see we didn't have to do that. Okay. There was pushback by certain places that in states that he was like, yo, you opened up too soon. Georgia was one of them. So I think sometimes his ego and his people use this term wrong a lot. His hubris is something that I don't necessarily agree with. But when you're talking about leading a nation and inspiring people in alignment with sound cognitive abilities and being charismatic, I think he's the clear, obvious choice. But this again keeps people caught in a duopoly.
mm. Yeah, that's what I wanted to elaborate on that. I was going there, but you met me there. Go ahead.
It's not, it should not be a right or left, Republican or Democrat conversation. The founders of America did not want a party system.
They didn't.
It was like, don't do a party system. If you do a party system, it'll be people arguing over the party instead of this principle or this legislation or potential action that is going to be better for the American people. And we
Mm.
see that now. It's always red versus blue. Both sides or people in those sides or camps are saying things that are absolutely ridiculous. I remember I testified in Congress and Hakeem Jeffries was there. And he tried to
Yeah.
line me up, but he couldn't. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries on X says some of the most, it's a lie. It's just not right. It's just, I don't know if you're ignorant and are just saying it, or you're just saying it to get the algorithms for the Elon bucks, because people are going to be like, that's not true. But both camps are just saying some of the most non-constitutional, have nothing to do with the advancement of America. The Constitution is a thing and it exists. And if you guys just tapped into this, we would have answers for this. There would not be $200 billion in Ukraine if we were going by the definition of what it says in the Constitution. There's nowhere in the Constitution that foreign aid has to be given to any nation. That could be Africa, that could be Switzerland, that could be Ukraine, that could be Taiwan, it could be whatever. Israel,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they're not going by that. So, and I think Trump has to get tighter in those areas. But if it relates to that, the duopoly is still a part of that same matrix. I am not convinced that Trump is not one of them. Conservatives have not, and you know, he doesn't identify so much as a conservative, right? He just identifies as a Republican.
See, hold on, Maj. For the record, guys, when he said Hakeem Jeffries, that's minority leader for the Democrat Party, Hakeem Jeffries. And I was going to, he said Trump doesn't identify as a conservative, but more so of a Republican. A lot of people don't know the difference, King.
Yeah, the conservative is about limiting government. Trump is a big spender, which means he adds to the budget of government, which means he's complicit in expansion of government. And that's not a conservative value. Conservatives wanted very little government. The founders, the guys that wrote the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, they wanted very little amounts of government. That means we're not creating more things to spend as it relates to government. Okay. So Trump is a big spender. He's bragged about it. But when you spend more for military, you add to the military industrial complex, which makes more wars and forever wars happen across the country. Nobody's talking about Yemen. America's been in Yemen for a bajillion years at this point. Syria. Point here is you limit government by reining in the spending and creating a budget. Now, obviously, that's Congress involved in that too. But if you aren't vocal about that because you're going, slow down on the spending, get a budget in order, as opposed to going, we're going to have the biggest military, that is not limited government. And it's going back into the conversation of right and left, as opposed to the people and the Constitution. So you're back in the duopoly conversation. You're back in, I saw somebody, the comedian Leslie Jones, that was in Ghostbusters, the woman Ghostbusters. She posted on X a child talking about, kid had to be 8, 9, 10 years old. And it's obviously a script. And he's wearing a Joe Biden hat and a Joe Biden t-shirt. And he's saying all of these things. And I'm like, imagine taking political guidance from a child. Imagine that. You're not even old enough to vote. And we clearly know that this is scripted. And he was saying, guys, stop voting third party. That's not how voting works. Voting means you find the candidate that is more in alignment with the Constitution, limited government, and the values that defend your freedoms and your rights as much as possible. If that happens to be a libertarian, vote for the libertarian. The reason why they keep trying to use the media to try to skillfully make third-party candidates, Green Party, Jill Stein, Cornel West, right? The reason why they do that is because it breaks the duopoly. They want you in a binary lesser of two evils. You're still voting for more evil.
Yeah. So with that third party, you're a libertarian. Elaborate, what is libertarianism? I know you're a part of the Mises caucus, and could you speak to y'all candidate, your presidential candidate that y'all nominated?
Yeah, the delegates nominated him.
Okay.
And I know Chase. I think Chase has said some things and is in alignment with things that I'm in opposition to. I also think that Chase, some of what he said is deliberately being taken out of context. Okay. That's the funny thing. I see them doing this, and they're going, we didn't want him to be the guy, so we're going to just take stuff that he said back in the day, some of it edited, we're going to leave the context out. I see them do that on the right, the left, or whatever, and I just don't like it, right? But there's things that I disagree with Chase about. And Chase will not win the presidency of the United States of America. But being a libertarian, the guys that wrote the founding documents were in alignment with what we would identify as libertarians now. Limited government. We want the people to have a say in government. We do not want party systems like that. We want these principles and these policies to be the leading factor. We believe in freedom. We don't believe that you should have to have a license to do everything. Government has no reason to be this seriously involved in your pocketbook, your wallet, or your purse. These are libertarian ideals, and that can be distilled in don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. But somehow we think that when government is threatening to or hurting people and taking their stuff, or threatening to hurt people or hurt people for you not giving them your stuff, somehow this one's okay. And that is what the Republicans and the Democrats have been. I'll give you a perfect example. 2020, we all act like this didn't happen 4 years ago. They were advocating for locking you up if you didn't take this experimental gene therapy. A lot of my Democrat friends got caught up in that media hype and started saying, and we saw it all over the media, if they don't want to take a vaccine and if they need a heart transplant, they don't get the heart transplant. This is what people said about other humans because they had questions about things. And so this concept of government should be telling you what to do because they use the media skillfully. And then years later, everybody starts to go, oh, we were wrong on that. Well, we weren't. We were going, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, you thought that government, you should use the violence of the state to force or coerce somebody into doing a thing. Libertarians are not in alignment with that. We believe in the NAP, the non-aggression principle. We do not want to initiate an act of aggression along the lines towards any being that is not being aggressive towards us initially. And that translates into government. Why are you forcing war on people that have not done anything to you? Whether it's you not calling it a war, you saying we're helping our ally Ukraine fight a proxy war. Why are they calling it that? Because they didn't go through Congress, which is required in the Constitution to get 2/3 of Congress to agree to officially go into and declare war. So these are things that libertarians are like, no. Why are we? Listen, Israel can be our ally. We don't owe them money. No. Hey, as a black man, I would love to see more international relations between places like the Sudan and the Congo, right? Whatever. I would love to see that, but the Constitution doesn't say that we have to foot the bill. That's what philanthropy is for.
Yeah.
And so saying this all to say, libertarians actually want money for Americans to stay with Americans unless you choose to send your money in humanitarian aid, not government forced taxes. Libertarians do not believe that the level of taxation, Joe Biden is floating a concept of a 45.6% capital gains tax.
Wow.
Like the Revolutionary War was because we were over taxation, but more so the lack of representation, but taxation was a part of that.
Yeah.
And so libertarians believe that government is way too big. It should be localized. If there is a federal government, it should be absolutely limited. And this is in alignment with what the founders of America wrote. The history is all over the place. People just got to look at it. So we just want limited government. To us, government should only really be there on the federal level to do a few things. Defend the rights of the lowest Republican or republic, which is a sovereign individual, which is the individual. And collectively, that obviously would be the case. If I have an individual right and you have government, if both of us are standing together, government should only be there to respect and defend your rights and defend the borders. That's it. Maybe interstate, kind of like the interstate roads and stuff like that. But it should be very, very limited. And most people think that Democrats are helping in that regard, and they're not. They're just saying, and Republicans are just doing it slower. They're expanding the government fast. They're expanding the war state fast. They're expanding the military-industrial complex fast. Republicans are just doing a little bit slower. That's not what the Constitution, and that's not what liberty and what is actually in the benefit of American interests. We're seeing it now. That $200 billion that went to Ukraine alone, we haven't even factored in the Israel money. But that $200 billion that went to Ukraine in a war that they can't win. They can't.
Yeah. So you say Ukraine can't win against Russia. They can't win against Russia.
Russia is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
America stopped doing trade and put trade restrictions on Russia since they expanded into, taking into that situation with Ukraine. Yeah. That still was also based on, because for some reason, Putin didn't do it when Trump was in office. Not just because Trump was his dude or he liked Trump. It was, hey, just don't try to expand Ukraine and get them involved in NATO. It's all he asked. Soon as Biden got involved, first thing he did. Ukraine, the people that don't know, Ukraine, to the listeners that may not be aware, when Gorbachev said no mas and the Berlin Wall came down and the USSR got broken down, instead of it being the United Soviet Socialist Republic, when it separated and Ukraine was a big chunk and they had weapons and nuclear weapons and they were a big chunk and a part of Russia. When that split happened and Ukraine became its own country, everybody's saying, oh, he wanted to take Ukraine. Ukraine was already initially in what was known as Russia. And when knowing that politically, Ukraine has been a hotbed of crime and money laundering for nations around the country, hence Burisma, hence Hunter Biden working in Burisma. And Putin's like, okay, cool, but don't try to expand on this and get them involved in NATO. Okay? And that's what Biden did. And so he's like, okay, cool.
Why do you
in Ukraine?
Yeah, and why do you think Putin doesn't want Ukraine and NATO?
Because it just makes it, they want to encapsulate in as Russia, Putin knows Russian history. And him going like, yo, they took a chunk of our country, but okay, cool. You're trying to encapsulate me, and then you'll be able to control our nation over time by strengthening NATO. And you guys are laundering money here in this nation that used to be a part of our thing. So don't try to make this group be a part of NATO, because we're a part of NATO. And now I got to be beholden and surrounded by corporations and countries that are in alignment with a philosophy that's not ours. And now that you're doing it, okay, cool. Now we got to go in. Now they try to spin it like, well, he won't stop at Ukraine. No, you did the opposite. For some reason, when Trump was in office and Trump was respecting this thing, he didn't invade Ukraine. It's not that he's afraid of Trump. Trump just was like, okay, cool. That's what you want. Can we do business? And we won't do that. It's the same thing as the street. Yo, they took one of my corners, and I know that's your man. I'm not going to go get that corner back because I don't really want beef with you because I respect you. But please don't try to sell this on this corner. Just don't do this. And me and you could get money, and I won't go smoke him because I want to smoke him.
Yeah.
And I have the capability and the soldiers to absolutely smoke him, but I rock with you.
Okay, Maj, that's that fire. Whoa. Listen. So tell me, two questions I got to ask you. That will shift. One, for the listeners, is Chase Oliver openly a part of the LGBTQIA plus community? And do you think that's why he will not be why some people back off? Is he openly into the same sex?
He's a gay dude.
Yeah, he's gay. Yeah. He's
a gay dude that answers questions horribly, not thinking about the context of how things could be spun.
Okay.
So, and he did stuff a while back that was like, I'm like, yeah, you didn't think that you would be running for president. You didn't think that you would, and that stuff's on the internet, right? Yeah. So Chase is a gay dude. Chase's platform, when you read his platform on the website, 1000% libertarian.
Yeah.
The questions that are asked of him, like, hey, do you believe in puberty blockers? Do you think that the government should? And he's like, no, that should be left up to the parents. If you're not saying, I want to use government to make sure that parents can't do it and government can't do it, the people that don't like you going to say, see, he wants puberty blockers for children. But it's convenient that y'all leave out the context of what he said. And again, I'm not a fan of Chase's moral choices, but we cannot, because I disagree with him on certain things, act like y'all not spinning what he said out of context. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So if somebody says, do you think the government should be in control of puberty blockers for children? Or should you think the parents should have control over it? And you say parents, and you don't answer that question fully. The full answer to that is the libertarian position is children cannot consent. So giving a child a puberty blocker that will have implications and impact on their adult life during a time where they may be a little bit confused and cannot consent, I don't think it's right for parents to do that or government to do that. That's the actual full answer.
Yeah.
That's you simplifying it. You go, I don't think the government, because libertarians don't believe government should be involved in any of those choices. So you say the parent. I take that part out and go, he believes children should be given puberty blockers. And that's what I see them doing with him.
Yeah. So, okay, Maj, another question on libertarianism. With him being openly gay, is there Christian libertarians? Is there conservative libertarians that don't believe in same? Because it seems like the Democrat Party is pro
free for all.
Yes. Then it seems like the Republican Party is more heterosexual, like man marries woman, and then you have libertarianism. It's like, is it just like you can't give people freedom and tell them how to exercise it?
There's a moral component to that. Like, I'm just good at explaining it, my morals.
Yeah.
Because I have some conservative overlap. Anybody that's libertarian as it relates to the government, you're definitely going to see overlap as it relates to you like your values, right? You're going to say, these are to limit government, not for government to tell you what you can't do morally.
Yes.
Right? So, but I have overlap. I'm a libertarian, but I don't want adults walking around naked in a camp calling it a festival. I'm not into that. You can be into it. If my neighbor lives next to me and on Sunday nights he walks around naked in his backyard, he has the right to do that. Right? He has the right to do that. Like, from a liberty standpoint. From my moral standpoint, I would say to him, hey, my 8-year-old is in her room and in the backyard during these times. Where's a way that we can meet here? Because I morally don't want you subjecting my child to the backyard and potentially seeing you naked. The problem is that it's contextual, and that requires a certain level of acceptance that he or she gets to do that on their property. Morally, I go, I wouldn't do that on my property because I don't want my neighbor or their children, adults or children, to see that. Morally, liberty-wise, that is his or her property. When you put people in a binary decision, the conversation becomes more simplified and does not equate a certain level of intelligence to deal with the solution. So now I have to go, yo, Steve, listen, love that you experience in freedom in this amazing home that you've built for yourself in this land. I noticed that on Sundays you walk around naked in your backyard, not your front yard, your backyard. Can there be a time period where I can make sure that my girl and my children and my wife and myself are not going to the backyard during that time period because we kind of don't want to see you naked?
Yeah, you're in your birthday, so
right. And now I would go, hey, bro, I'm not judging you because your choice to be naked. You want to sunbathe, you want a full body tan, you want vitamin D, whatever your reasons are. But is there a way that we can find some sort of compromise?
Yeah. Okay.
People that are libertarian go, I believe that there's a way to find a compromise here. If I don't want you to go third party, I highlight that means that, like, I'm advocating for all libertarians, all Americans should be walking around naked. And that's not what it means. It means I respect your choices. Your choices just should not have an impact on my property or my body. Now, he can say, absolutely not. On Sundays, I walk around in my backyard. If you don't like it, move. He has the right to say that. I wouldn't like it, and I would determine whether I want to move or not. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get the police to try to lock him up for being nude in his backyard, because that's expanding government. Morally, we and our family don't rock with him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Him asking me for help, him asking me for anything, I'm going to leverage anything that he wants against him until I get what we need out of this equation.
Okay.
But I'm not going to try to get the police for something that he has the right to do. That it's just not in alignment with my moral standing.
Because as a conservative and libertarian, you're for small government. Now, Maj, why are you not on the Breakfast Club? Why are you not on Hot 97? You've been on Fox. You've done CPAC. You've been to the White House. Why have you not been on the Breakfast Club and had this conversation with Charlemagne? I mean, Joe was on there, and Joe told Charlemagne he wasn't black. So why didn't they bring you up there and have this dialogue? I think it'd be interesting.
They're afraid, especially in an election year. The people that are going to watch this podcast and see, I can fully explain a concept and make it simply. Your donors, your political donors, again, I know some of these people. I know that the Biden administration has called them and was like, yo, we need you to say this. I know that they leveraging that to go, we're going to act like we're being like, oh no, man, I don't know if I can get behind Joe Biden this year. Right? The word came out. Joe Biden's more than likely not going to be the nominee. Right? So they'll say, and they have been for about a month or two, we've been saying this for years, Joe Biden's not going to be the guy, even if he initially gets the nod. Now they're talking about Michelle Obama. Now they're talking about Kamala Harris. Those guys are pretending like we ain't feeling Joe Biden, the black community not feeling him, just so when they switch it to whoever this new person is, they go, nah, we could get behind her. I know that those phone calls and emails have went out already. So you almost can't have me on your platform. I fuck your money train up. I just, pardon the language, I will make too many of the people that listen to you listen to me. And I am going to tell those people, get healthy, get financially astute, go to the gym, eat better foods, work out, read books, hit the gym, spend time with family. I'm going to tell them to start doing the Solutionary 9. It's a smart move to not have me on. It's obvious. There's too many people that have advocated for me to be on there for years. I did Tommy Laren's show a few days ago, and she's did it. And she said it, we jokingly say it now. They're afraid. They are afraid of strong black men. Charlemagne is afraid of a strong black man to sit in front of him and have that conversation, especially me. These people don't have a voice of the streets. They don't have this. Charlemagne knows my child's mother. They worked at the radio station together in Philadelphia years ago. Charlemagne is very clear on what I'm about. But your handlers won't allow it. And I hear that because some people will say, oh, well, they had the minister, they had Farrakhan on, and it don't get more pro-black and controversial than that. Yes, it does. The minister is 80-something years old. The minister is not impacting the community. The minister don't tell black young men to go get guns and train and go to the gym. The historical relevance of what Minister Farrakhan has done, or the perception of what he has done, is there. But he ain't out in the streets teaching people at this point in the game. You would rather have on, and shouts to Nina Turner. We follow each other on social media on X, right? There, and even her, she's been very critical of the Democrat Party. My point is, these people will have on people that'll talk about complaining about the system, but then Charlemagne is a gun owner, but then will advocate for more gun control.
Wow.
You cannot have me on your platform. I will make you look like a fool because I will expose your contradiction to the maximum degree. That's what I'm supposed to do. You could just stop being contradictory. So when you say things like, oh, we got to at least have some common sense gun reform, you're a liar. You know what that actually means, and you're lying to the people. You know the data is there. You're either stupid or you're being deceptive. And I'm going to give you deceptive because I don't think you're that stupid. You would rather say to people guns are the problem. Envy too. Envy shoots at gun for hire range, which is 15 minutes right outside of Manhattan. Shouts to Anthony Calandro that owns that range. These people say anything for the tap dance on their platform, and they do things that are in opposition to that because it's more in alignment with conservatives. You can't say the government is bad and then say we should vote for Joe Biden. You cannot say the government is bad, the government is racist, we have systemic racist issues, and then support the Democratic Party. You can't. They're the reason why our communities are the way that they are. This does not mean you have to go Republican. This does not mean that you have to go vote for RFK Jr. It doesn't. He's anti-gun as well. He wants to expand government. He's a Democrat that just is running under the independent platform. You cannot say these things and then all roads lead to liberty and pro-gun and pro-freedom and educating the community, and you don't put those people on there. Now, I will give them some credit. The last go around, they had the sister, the black woman that ran for as an independent. She ran for president. They had her on. Forget the sister's name. However, they don't want to talk to strong black men.
Wow. Strong black men. The Breakfast Club does not want to talk to strong black men.
And let me be clear. Shouts to the brothers that have been on there. Killer Mike's a buddy of mine.
Yeah. Shout out to Killer Mike. Got the sweep at the Grammys.
Yeah. I think shouts to because I don't want to say this as every man that's been on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Not a strong man or not a
the internet gonna top that one up, Maj. Yeah. Fix that.
I'm saying in the sense of, Killer Mike is an entertainer. Killer Mike is many things.
Yeah, you say, but you say entertainers are not leaders. Another shirt, y'all go get that. Y'all go support. Entertainers are not leaders.
I think that most entertainers are, to a certain extent, have been compromised. They
Mm,
Killer Mike is articulate on, especially for things in the past, right? I don't have none of the vices that Killer Mike has.
okay.
I don't go to strip clubs. And I'm
Okay.
not saying this as a diss.
No, I get it. I get it.
I'm saying this as I will have a nation of young men going to the gym, eating healthy, working out, shooting guns, growing food, right? And I'm not saying that Killer Mike has advocated against these things,
Yeah.
but Killer Mike's not in shape. And visually that matters. And when you're in the Hollywood and the entertainment business, there are certain things that you kind of are boxed and bound by. He has made magic happen with his platform, meaning Killer Mike. However, I don't want Killer Mike to say certain shit because we need him in that space, right? The things that I'll say, Killer Mike could get canceled for. The leftist agenda, they do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So I don't need him to say those things. And because he's an entertainer and doesn't say some of those things, right? I don't need to talk about cars and jewelry. I don't wear jewelry. It's not my thing. And he talks about real estate ventures and does these things as well. So again, I'm gonna be robust in my answering. But I don't have any of the vices that a lot of entertainers have. And by nature, to be an entertainer, you somewhat got to be a little bit more flashy and gaudy here and there to let them know. I got to pull a big chain out here and there. I'm not pulling a big chain out. I'm pulling a big gun out to defend my community. And I'm vocal about that. And so that's the reason why these platforms get afraid. And it will be different if they could have me on and ridicule me. You can't ridicule me because I know more about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, history, and I can articulate these things not to the point where you could box me in. You can't, even in this conversation here, even if somebody tried to clip up what I'm saying about Killer Mike to make it look like I got an issue with Mike.
Yeah.
I could just go, that's not what I said. Here's the further context. I don't leave certain things out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you can elaborate. You can articulate yourself.
Yeah, you can't box me in on that.
So
But
go ahead. So going there, you're not so much of a gun guy or like a community guy, but you have connected with Colion Noir.
Yeah.
Do you guys, why don't y'all connect in like more? Where is that collaboration? I see what you do, his side. I would want to see more see if those two platforms can merge. I believe it could be beneficial to the 2A community.
It could be. I've done Noir's show a bunch of times back in the day.
Yeah.
The last season of his show, he started kind of doing stuff that I thought I didn't know a lot. I didn't know his dad was, God bless the dead. I didn't know his dad was dying. I didn't know his relationship with Ackerman McQueen, which was the PR firm that actually hired him. He never worked for NRA. He worked for Ackerman McQueen.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why there's no more NRA TV is because NRA TV was a creation of Ackerman McQueen. And when they split with the NRA, that TV show went away. And not just Noir, another person that gave us my first interview was Dana Lash. She was over there at NRA TV. My point in saying that is there was things that happened and I was like, I think this dude is trying to be me. Not knowing that, one, those things that I just mentioned, as well as he was under contract. And I was very critical of him during the time. And I've seen him since then, and I've apologized to him in person for that. But and now in hindsight, and this is the one area that I always say that I'm like, I would have handled that differently had I known, Yeah. I partially think that's a part of the reason why I haven't been on Joe Rogan. He has a relationship with Joe Rogan. And everybody, Hotep Jesus, a bunch of people like, yo, you should have Maj on. Hotep Jesus has been on there and sent a DM to Joe Rogan. And he's one of the only people that, without me asking, sent that DM. And I think that during that time, he might have been asked, and this is my assumption and my speculation. But I think maybe he put a bug in Rogan's ear during that time, and I've never been on Rogan. I can't prove that. That's my thought, right? So this is why I cherish the relationships, and another reason why I'm so articulate in explaining, like, hey, what I'm saying about Killer Mike or any individual is not an attack on them. When I have a problem, when I want to attack somebody verbally, I say their name and I attack them. I'm explaining that difference between, Killer Mike is a rapper. It's a rap station, right?
Yeah.
Killer Mike has an amazing catalog,
Yeah.
right? But I am an activist. I am in my community center. I am not an entertainer. I can be entertaining and charismatic, but you can't, I am in no way, shape, or form, you can't leverage me. And it's a free man talking. And so these are the reasons. And I explain that in a way where learning from that New War situation that I should have explained it better then. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I made since being public over the last 6 or 7 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got his number, and when he's ready, but his personality, New War is not I'm a very direct. He's more of a loner, more of like a and I'm not saying this in a rude way. There's different personality types. We put so much emphasis on, I'm an alpha male. Like anything other than that is somehow less than. But it's like there's different personality types, and he's a different personality type. It's like Jay-Z and Fabulous are more of a, I'm not dealing with that directly type of personality type. 50 Cent is more of a like, we're going to deal with this right now.
Yeah. 50.
Beef. It's just I'm more aggressive and, right to the point. And so those things would happen, but I'm also not a gun guy. I'm a community activist that has a holistic approach. Right? I'm not putting together AR-15s for therapy. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not manufacturing ammo because it's a therapeutic experience for me.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. My thing is what tools and what things are around for our communities in America in general to get better. I can go into lanes that these guys cannot. I'm in the health and fitness room.
Yeah.
Right. Some of my other friends are guys like Mike Rashid. And Mike Rashid is like somebody that I admire and respect and have watched his come up on YouTube for years now. And now I can call him and be like, yo, Mike, what you think about this? So the other thing is our people don't only need guns.
It's true. That's true.
The general public, Black, white, Spanish, Asian, Indian, Indigenous, Cherokee, Choctaw, whatever, Mexican, we need a holistic approach to life. And I'm better suited to do that than a lot of these people. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant tip. My life has structured me as such. My identity is not tied to firearms per se.
Wow, I see what you're saying when it's like Colin Noir, who we want to bring on the show, is like center straight gun, and you're more community active, holistic. I love that. Now, brother, you a direct brother, and is there any hope that you and Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum, ever gonna sit down and just be cool? And because that's a disconnect as well, and I just want to know where that originate from. Is there any sitting down and reconciling that relationship if there was one? I think it's Officer Tatum he go by, if I'm being correct.
Yeah. There's no issue with Tatum. He's a clown. He does not there's a difference, man. You ever see, there's nothing worse to a good salesperson than seeing a bad salesperson. The information is there. And it's even worse when that salesperson is pretending like they're a really good salesperson to a good salesperson. Tatum is it's like, I'm going to say things that are going to, it's the lily white conservative movement in blackface with him. It's the neocon, let me just say things that are going to be really disrespectful to black people. That's not what conservatism is. That's not what liberty is. Like, oh, welfare queen. Welfare was started for white people. Like, oh, they want a handout. Soon as it come time for black people to get the same thing that the government gave to other people, now it's a handout. So like, and I'm not a fan of government handouts, but I'm saying like, we got to look at the timeline though. Right. And so there's not an issue with Officer Tantrum. to me, I just had to create a clear distinction between he was one that I also was like, why now all of a sudden you look like me? And in hindsight, I should have looked at it, even with him, I should have looked at it like people are seeing you make waves by being yourself, Maj, and they kind of want to be more relaxed and be themselves too. The problem with Tatum is that's not who he is. Tatum suffers from self-hate. Tatum does not want to acknowledge the fact that there are some systemic issues in America. That's not saying, listen, I will re-up on America every year. We got problems, but we also got the Constitution and a system that is supposed to be defending the individual's right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness and property. So I'm not going to pretend like, oh, somehow because Japan has a bullet train and their areas are cleaner, that somehow that means they have more freedom. They don't. But at the same time, I'm not going to act like gun control is not a systemically racist issue, which means there are some systemically racist issues in America. There's white people that tell you that. Like, there's a book called The Color of Law that talks about the gentrification and like banks and whole like suburbs were giving specific rules. If we give you financing to make these suburban colonies, you cannot sell any of this to Black people. And one of the biggest measures of wealth in America and generational wealth is home ownership.
Yes.
So we cannot act like that was not racist. Like, stop the fucking, like, stop it. Like, this also does not mean that every single thing that happens in America is racist. Problem with these people in these perspective camps is they just go one or the other. And the problem with what's dealing with somebody like me is, like, I'm going to be objective and up the middle. My highest alignment is to the truth. Y'all want me to say a thing to be binary. If I just went all the way left and was like, everything is racist, the left would just love me. I would be at the Democratic National Convention and this and that and da-da-da-da-da. If I just went MAGA or Republican and everything on the left is horrible and nothing is racist and da-da-da-da, it would go through the roof. That's not what America needs. That's not the leader that I am. That's not what I'm going to be for our communities. And when I say our communities, I mean American communities. Come on. These people are doing a thing, and I hate using this word, but they fit the description. They grift because I have to say a thing that my base, and I play to the lowest IQ of whatever, right or left. I just say Trump is evil, Trump is racist, whatever, if I'm on the left. Trump is a threat to democracy. Trump is trying to destroy America. As you know, this is the most important election of our lives. They got their talking points. They don't deviate from it. If I'm on the right, I say Trump can do no wrong. Joe, nothing that the Democrats do is this. You're on a Democratic plantation. It's all of these things. And you say you shouldn't get government handouts, but you won't acknowledge the fact that the entire government bailed out the pharmaceutical and airline industry. Stop pretending. You say you're not with socialism. Tax dollars being taken out to fund police and fire departments is a form of socialism. Stop it. Problem is when you have well-rounded, robust thinking, articulate people like me that are not afraid to be in alignment with the warrior class that we're from, that can be warrior philosopher poets that are leaders of men. Now, both sides, you become your own island.
Would you say public schools form of socialism?
Absolutely, it is. The Department of Education shouldn't even exist.
Okay.
How has it helped? It was created initially by Rockefeller. He wanted worker bees. He did it. He did what he wanted to do.
Wow.
So, like, when the funny thing is, the more government we get, like when people will be like, oh, well, who would build the roads? First of all of the roads are built. That's number one. Number two, they were built during a time when there wasn't an income tax.
Wow. Okay.
Like this happened in 1913, like the Federal Reserve creation.
Yeah.
My people perish for a lack of knowledge. So when you have somebody like me that's going to say, yo, you're not conservative, you're an authoritarian. When you say things like, Like, I'm not a fan of pornography, especially pornography being exposed to children, right?
Yeah.
100%. But I'm not going to say that government should be forcing porn to be gone. I'm going to say, morally, are you raising your family and your children and all of these different things? And that kills the demand, which kills the market, which makes porn go away, and government doesn't have to be involved. That takes more intelligence. It takes more intelligence to interface with nature than it does to try to control it. Y'all want to be authoritarians and control it and call it conservative because you have your moral thing, and you would gladly give government more power to crush people that are morally in the opposition to what you morally believe in. That is not conservative. And when I call that out, I've had dinner with Brandon Tatum. I had dinner one time with Brandon Tatum.
So I'm glad you said his name again, because when you said tantrum, I said, man, I've been pronouncing his name wrong.
No.
You was being facetious. Okay. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I had dinner. It was me, his current wife, his now wife, what's the brother's name? The brother that wears the Trump hats in the front of the airplane and people have to see him.
James, the funny guy, comedian,
and Terrence K. Williams too.
Yeah.
We all had dinner a few years ago in Atlanta, and we talked about me being, my views on drug use. I think drug use is horrible. I think those are individual choices, and the founders of America did not tell people that they cannot use drugs. Yeah. If heroin was legal tomorrow, most Americans would not just go do heroin.
Yeah.
They would go or fentanyl. We would go hell no, look at that. That's no, thank you.
Yeah.
Asking government to get involved because you morally disagree with it doesn't help. Now, I'll give another example, because some people will go, well, Maj, are you as a libertarian advocating for rampant drug use? Absolutely not. Back in the day, in the 90s, I use this example all the time because it fits. Back in the day, we had a problem with teen pregnancy in the 90s. Remember Brenda's Got a Baby by Tupac?
Yeah.
They didn't make teen pregnancy illegal and arrest teenagers for having sex. They made a thing called sex education that they introduced, and parents had to sign off on it. And it wasn't this thing that they're doing now. It was explaining how the reproductive system works and how condoms work and this, and the third. And teen pregnancy damn near disappeared. We don't even talk about it anymore. There was no government involvement other than the system that said, okay, we got a problem. If we got to be around and schools are here, let's teach the young people about what to do and what not to do. And teen pregnancy dropped. You do not need government to do that. Now, it was implemented through public education. Wow. My point in saying this is government didn't go, if we find you having sex as a 17-year-old, you going to jail. These people, Matt, the one with the beard, right? They'll say things like petty theft should be caned like they do in Thailand. You're advocating for cruel and unusual punishment, and the Constitution specifically goes against that.
Yep.
That is not limited government. That is authoritarianism. You would just use more government to strengthen the things that you believe in. And then when every side gets in power, they say, well, we want to use government to do this. And then they say, well, we want to use government to do this. And over 10 years, 10 decades, 10 generations of that, we've just given government more and more power.
Wow. So Maj, it is safe to say, what do you think about bail bonding and bonding out in companies and defunding the police? Like having to pay, like if you're looking at the Constitution, someone having to bond out to get due process, when some argue like, man, that's kidnapping, that's ransom.
It is ransom. I have not been proven guilty of anything.
No.
If let's say if it's I'm charged with homicide, okay, you got to stay here. You got to be on house arrest. You are a flight risk because of these reasons. And let's say even if you don't do that, you've been charged with murder, okay, or rape, heinous crimes. You've been charged with them. If you run, we have marshals and we will catch you and then we put you in jail. Or you can just stay home and fight this case. I have not been proven guilty of anything by a jury of my peers. Why are you telling me I have to pay you for my freedom? And these are the things these are simple questions. And some people would say, well, you got to have that because it's what forces people to come to court. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
People jump bail all the time. The system should be designed for maximum benefit of the people and maximum respect for those lives. Liberty and libertarianism and forms of conservatism, which limited government, does that and asks for that. The problem is now you got to do more thinking or more work. So instead of people saying, hey, you've been charged with this crime, I'm going to put the ankle monitor on you. We need to know exactly where you are all the time. If this ankle monitor goes off, you got to go to jail.
Come on. Taking for granite, I believe I pronounced it. Or what's up, King? He said we popped up in the algorithm. So I agree with you what you're saying as far as the ankle monitor and the marshals and because if you're talking the Constitution, it sounds like when I read the Constitution that violates the due process. And again, we use the extreme. And if you have any comments and dialogue on that, please drop your questions here for Maz Toure. We're about to land this plane. Thank you again, brother, for being generous with your time. Okay, we spoke on Candace Owens. You done her show. What is your relationship with her? And where's Candace? And I really haven't heard much from her, about the election and stuff right now. And I know you had done her shows. Great dialogue.
Candace is doing a rebrand. Candace is trying to get back into the Black community's good graces because of some of the things that she said in the past about the Black community. She's just doing a rebrand. We cool. I don't talk to her like I talk to shoot Mike Rashida text and some shit like that, right? Yeah. I don't even know if I have her new number. Right? Like I haven't texted her. But Candace falls in the line with that. Listen, this is all PR and marketing for a lot of these people. They are not community activists. Scott Pressler is a political community activist.
Yeah.
He's damn near single-handedly making like certain parts of Pennsylvania go from blue to red, right?
Wow.
Candace Owens has good takes on certain things. She has horrible takes on others.
Okay.
And I think, now maybe pregnant Candace is a little bit like, dude, I don't got time for certain things. And she's generated a certain level of research a certain level of following. So now she maybe can say some more things that, whatever, but you already kind of like put your foot in your mouth on certain things by how you came at Black community. So I'm not going to get Candace doesn't need me to defend her. Candace can very well defend herself verbally in that regard. But I just think that anybody that's don't talk about a community if you're not doing no work in it. Okay. And I get it. That's what podcasters tend to do, right? Yeah. We discuss topics, right? Yeah. But when you're consistently critiquing a community and you have done no work in it, I see this with my homegirl Ashira, she lives in Jerusalem, and she has this TV show on Rumble called Black and Jewish, right? People be talking about Israel and never been there. You are talking about the Israeli government in alignment with politicians from America that identify as Jewish that don't keep none of the laws, but they're in a position of power in America in connection with politicians in Israel that the people of Israel are like, we don't even like these people. But you say these things about these people and you've never been there. Like people were arguing. I watched her do something on another podcast, and they were telling her about things in Israel. She's like, that's not true. We can't go to areas that are encampments for the Gazans over there. That they can come into our area, but we can't go over there. And it was like, She's like, I live there. And she was like, pull it up. And they pulled it up and they were like, oh, she's right. So these people have these talking points that they just run with. Any community that you're consistently critiquing and you have not went there. Again, I went to Chicago for a month with no cameras to just do conflict resolution. And it was around the time when I think it was Memorial Day or one of them holidays, Labor Day, which traditionally a bloody weekend. And there were no homicides for that weekend, for that month. Like you can't just like my pushback with all of these people is, are you just pandering to the lowest IQ common denominator that is bigoted in your following to keep the algorithms brewing so you can make some money off the ad revenues? If that's what you're doing, I understand it, but that is not what America needs. You're not helping. I am not going to be non-critical of AIPAC and say, yeah, you guys are definitely involved in American politics. But that is not an indication of every single Jewish person. Let's use a different example before they say the Jewish Illuminati got me, right? If you do not do work in Black communities and you're critiquing them all of the time and you don't know what goes on there, you're just saying things. If someone says Black culture is this, because I talked about this on Candace's show when I did it a little while back. The things that you're calling Black culture are not Black culture. Black culture is the Cosby Show. You can't on one hand say, oh, the Black community is X, Y, and Z, and their culture is this, but then say, oh, because Black people are conservative and they just don't know it. You say that when it's time for elections, but then you're saying that this is what Black culture is, that sexy red is Black culture. No, it's not. There are media campaigns to boost debauchery and highlight it and sell it to communities. You cannot sell millions of records without a lot of those records being sold to white people.
Yeah.
So these people that I'm critical of them because you don't do any work in the communities that you're critiquing. Are you going to be whining about the problem? Ironically, you say the same thing, that this is what the snowflakes do. You're whining about a problem. You're not there to do any of the solution, and you're only highlighting the manufactured presentation of our culture as the culture, and it's not. You are back-to-back contradicting yourself, and I contend that the vast majority of them know that that's what they're doing, and they're doing it because it generates interest and debate and drama. America will not be saved by drama and entertainment. America will be saved by people doing the work, liberty work, conservative, limited government work, food, clothing, shelter, developing skills and trades, spending time with family, highlighting a high level of moral integrity. These are the things that initially made certain sections of America great. And if you say you want to make America great again, you have to do those things, not only talk about and highlight. Conservatives have just made yet another person famous. The Hawk Toure girl. You shouldn't have even been reposting and making fun of that because it is not in alignment with a Christian conservative value. You take somebody that says something and so-called anti-Semitic and you highlight them, or you get somebody that says, well, I should be able to say the N-word, and you as a conservative should be going, that's not in high moral standing. So why would I even want to fight to say that word?
Yeah, wow.
As opposed to coming up with these contradictory statements of saying, well, y'all could say it. Okay, so if I'm a rapist, you get to do it too? If I'm doing something wrong?
Wow.
This conversation, how I can articulate these things, this is the reason why those platforms, or on the right or on the left, is like, we gotta pretend like Maj isn't here.
Yeah, leave Maj alone. Yeah.
And you should leave me alone. You should leave me alone unless you're trying to improve. If you're trying to improve, I'm going to hold you to a standard. And they don't like standards. And so the standard of saying things, sounding convincing while you say them, will not hold up against me if I start really giving you my attention. It won't hold up.
Man, Maj, brother, last one before we get out of here, King. You constitutional carry, concealed carry. I was watching some interviews. You go everywhere with it. You gonna post that. You at places, gun-free zones, dropped out in the 90s, I believe 1990. How do you feel about that? Do you have a concealed carry permit for the firearms you carry to protect yourself?
It's called the Second Amendment. Gun-free zones were a creation of Joe Biden. He co-wrote the legislation in 1990, and it became law in 1991 under the Clinton crime bills. Since 1991, when it became federal law, 90% of mass shootings are in gun-free zones.
Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate you. So no, I don't participate in those. And I'm carrying a gun. And our work is cited in the Bruin decision, the Supreme Court Bruin decision. Black Guns Matter is cited in that decision. And that decision clarifies that New York State, people in New York, have a right to carry firearms. The Bruin decision, the Heller decision, McDonald versus Chicago, Ezell versus Chicago, all insert a bunch of other legislation, just highlights and supports the Second Amendment as the supreme law of the land as it relates to carrying firearms, to keep and carry, to keep and bear meaning carry.
Yeah.
I just want people to do a little bit of modicum of research into why they're trying to make sure that you don't have the means to defend yourself.
Yeah. Wow.
Just think of it like this. If somebody said, yo, bro, you got your gun? We going over here to this place. You got your gun? And you was like, yeah, I got my gun. And they was like, oh, no, just leave your gun at home. You don't need a gun. You would look at them side eye. You would go, first, why'd you ask me if I had a gun? And why are you trying to get me to take my gun off as we go over to this place? You trying to set me up. That's the natural reaction. Similarly, ask that of your government. Do you trust that your government will be asking you that question and creating rules and calling it common sense when all of the data proves that the areas that have less safe and responsible gun owners have more violent crime and have more mass shootings?
Yeah.
Do you trust that this government is saying that because they want to hook you up or they trying to set you up? And if you land on hook you up, cool, great, that's for you. And I respect your right to trust the government that much. I don't.
Wow. Man, guys, Maj Toure. Man, listen, this was a Quantel Lindsey podcast. This was intriguing. This was educational. Listen, you guys go out and support this brother. He has shirts. He has a solutionary center. They raise funds and pour it all back into the community. They do a lot of good work in training firearm safety. Listen, know how to be safe with your firearm. Teach your kids. We got a lot of kids picking up guns, a lot of people not knowing how to use a firearm. This brother is boots on the ground, doing these classes all for free, right, Maj?
All free. If you want to do some online stuff, the class is only $20. But if it's in person at the center or anywhere else, all of these classes are free because of voluntary donations. If you guys have got any value from this podcast, one, make sure that you continue to share podcasts like these that are willing to have positive and robust conversations. Share it. And if you got something from it, donate. We now need about 1,967 more donors at the $100 level, and we are done with the fundraising completely. That keeps the classes free, and that helps us buy our building. So if you guys can, go over to givesendgo.com/solutionary. givesendgo.com/solutionary. If you can be one of those 1,967 donors that we need at the $100 level, please do so. If you can't, sign up to be a $5 a month recurring donor. It's $5. Imagine if we get 100,000 people in 1 week to sign up at the $5 level. So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, brother, for reaching out to have me on this podcast. I send good energy, positive support. Clip it. I'll clip up some of this stuff and make sure that I lean people your direction, because these are the types of conversations that our communities, and I mean American communities more specifically, need to have to make sure that we're course correcting and putting our nation in a direction that is in alignment with our freedom, our liberty, and living up to the ideals that America was founded upon.
Man, y'all heard it here, the Quantel Lindsey podcast. This is brother Maj Toure. Y'all go support that brother. Y'all go donate and give to that, man. Get those classes. Keep this brother moving. Thank you again, King. You be blessed, brother. I'll be in touch.
Peace.
Much love, family.